Respect in a relationship rarely disappears in one dramatic moment. It fades quietly, slowly, often long before love itself disappears. And this is the painful truth many men do not realize until it is too late. A woman can still say she loves you while her respect for you is already collapsing. She can still stay with you while the way she sees you as a man has already changed. And the worst part is this: when respect begins to die, most men react in ways that make the situation worse without realizing it. This is where confusion begins, because a man feels the change, but he cannot explain it. Something about the way she speaks to him feels different. Something about the way she listens feels colder. He tells himself maybe she is stressed, maybe she is tired, maybe things will go back to normal. But inside his chest, there is a quiet question he cannot ignore. Why does it feel like she doesn't look at me the same way anymore? In this conversation, we are going to slow this down and look at what is really happening when respect starts collapsing before love ends. By the end of this video, you will understand how respect actually fades inside relationships, why many good men accidentally accelerate this process, and how to respond in a way that protects your dignity instead of slowly losing it. And if you appreciate honest conversations like this, calm explanations about relationships, psychology, and male self-respect, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. Not because numbers matter, but because men who understand these dynamics early avoid years of unnecessary confusion. Now let's begin with the uncomfortable part that many men never hear clearly. Respect does not collapse because a woman suddenly becomes cruel or unfair. Most of the time, respect collapses because the emotional balance inside the relationship slowly shifts. And when that balance shifts, the way she experiences you changes. At the beginning of a relationship, many men carry themselves with natural authority. They have their own life, their own direction, their own emotional center. They care about the woman, but they are not orbiting around her. And that quiet independence is part of what creates attraction in the first place. But this is where something subtle begins to happen. The more emotionally invested a man becomes, the more he sometimes starts adjusting himself to maintain harmony. He explains more, he apologizes more quickly, he tolerates small disrespect because he wants peace. And on the surface, this looks like kindness. But what looks small here is actually the real problem. Respect inside attraction psychology is deeply connected to emotional stability and boundaries. When a man begins to slowly abandon his boundaries to keep the relationship comfortable, the signal she receives is not always love. Sometimes the signal she receives is that the man is afraid to lose her. And fear changes the energy of a relationship. This is where the first warning sign of collapsing respect often appears, and most men miss it completely. A woman begins correcting or criticizing you more openly, even in small ways. It may sound harmless at first. Maybe she comments on how you speak, how you dress, how you spend time with friends, or how you handle decisions. None of these things alone seem dramatic, but pay attention to the tone. The respect behind the words is different. Attraction psychology research and relationship studies, like those from John Gottman's work on relationship stability, often show that respect is reflected in how partners speak during small moments, not just big conflicts. When respect is strong, even criticism carries warmth. When respect begins to fade, criticism carries irritation. And many men respond to this moment by trying harder to please. They explain themselves, they reassure her, they try to fix the problem immediately. But this is where men usually misunderstand the situation. When respect is fading, over-explaining rarely restores it. It often communicates insecurity. Now, another subtle change begins to appear. She starts challenging your decisions more often. In a healthy relationship, disagreement exists, but there is still a quiet trust in the man's leadership and judgment. When respect weakens, that trust fades. Suddenly, every decision becomes a debate. Where you go, how you spend time, what you prioritize. Even small plans become negotiations. And here is the deeper psychology behind this. Inspired by attachment theory research, people naturally test the stability of the person they are emotionally attached to. When respect is strong, these tests are light. When respect weakens, the tests become sharper. And the mistake many men make here quietly destroys everything. They begin seeking approval instead of making decisions. Instead of saying, "This is what I'm doing," they say, "Is that okay with you?" Now, this may sound polite, but attraction dynamics often interpret that shift differently. Leadership energy becomes uncertainty. Another warning sign appears next, and it usually confuses men the most. Her appreciation slowly disappears. At the beginning, she notices your effort. She thanks you for things. She values your time and attention. But when respect fades, those same efforts become expected rather than appreciated. You do something thoughtful, and the reaction is neutral. You show up for her, and it feels like the gesture barely registers. And inside the man's mind, confusion begins growing. He tells himself, maybe I need to do more. So he increases effort. More messages, more reassurance, more emotional availability. But this is the part nobody explains. When appreciation disappears, increasing effort without restoring boundaries sometimes lowers perceived value further. Not because effort is bad, but because effort without emotional balance signals desperation, and that mistake quietly destroys attraction. Now, another subtle shift begins to appear that many men describe but rarely understand. Her emotional warmth becomes inconsistent. Some days she feels affectionate, engaged, and connected. Other days she feels distant, distracted, almost indifferent. Mixed signals like this create emotional confusion. The man begins chasing the warm version of her, trying to recover the feeling the relationship once had. But psychologically, this dynamic can slowly reverse emotional roles. The man becomes the one seeking reassurance, while the woman becomes the one controlling emotional availability. And when that imbalance becomes strong, respect can continue eroding. But there's another warning sign that reveals something even deeper. She begins speaking about you differently to others. Sometimes it shows in subtle jokes, sometimes in comments that make you sound less capable, less serious, or less authoritative. Respect often reveals itself publicly before it disappears privately. When someone respects you deeply, they protect your image in front of others. When respect fades, that protection weakens. And men often feel this moment but struggle to address it calmly. They either stay silent and feel resentment, or they react emotionally and create conflict. But neither reaction solves the real problem, because the real problem is not the comment itself. The real problem is the shift in how she internally perceives your authority as a man. Now, here's another painful sign many men ignore. Your emotional boundaries begin feeling negotiable. At the beginning of a relationship, when you say something matters to you, it carries weight. Over time, when respect fades, those same boundaries start being tested repeatedly. Maybe it's about time, maybe it's about communication, maybe it's about loyalty or behavior around other people. And every time the boundary is tested, the man faces a difficult emotional choice. He can enforce the boundary and risk conflict, or ignore the violation and maintain temporary peace. Many men choose peace, but every time a boundary is ignored, the relationship silently updates its internal rules, and that update rarely favors the man. Now, there's one more warning sign that is often the clearest signal of all. She stops taking your emotional reactions seriously. When a man expresses frustration, concern, or disappointment, the response becomes dismissive. Maybe she calls him sensitive. Maybe she brushes the conversation away. This moment hurts deeply because it touches male dignity. And here is the psychological truth many men must understand. Respect is not maintained through emotional pleading. It's maintained through emotional self-control and clear boundaries. This does not mean becoming cold or aggressive. It means becoming stable. Now, let's pause for a moment and look at the real reality behind everything we just discussed. Most of these signs appear gradually. They rarely explode overnight. And because they appear slowly, men rationalize them. He tells himself relationships are complicated. He tells himself she is going through something. He tells himself love means patience. And patience is valuable, but patience without clarity can slowly cost a man his dignity. So what should a man actually do when he begins noticing these signs? First, stop trying to recover respect through increased effort. Respect rarely returns because a man tries harder to please someone who already sees him as emotionally dependent. Second, restore your emotional center. Inspired by emotional intelligence research, the most attractive emotional signal a man can send is calm stability, not anger, not begging, stability. That means reducing reactive conversations, reducing approval seeking, and quietly returning attention to your own direction in life. Third, enforce one clear boundary calmly, not through threats, not through emotional speeches, just clarity. Something as simple as explaining calmly what behavior you will not accept moving forward. And here's the mindset shift many men need to hear. Respect is not something you demand with words. It's something people respond to when your behavior communicates self-respect. When a man respects himself emotionally, his decisions become clearer, his reactions become calmer, his presence becomes stronger, and that energy changes how people relate to him. Now, here's the practical action you can apply immediately. The next time you feel the urge to chase reassurance, pause for a moment. Do nothing for a moment. Ask yourself one simple question: am I acting from self-respect or fear of losing her? Then adjust your behavior from that answer. Stop explaining your value repeatedly. Start living it quietly. Stop negotiating your boundaries. Start enforcing them calmly.